Hey everyone, Steve here, back on the SoCal N-Scale layout for another video update. Last week I did a tour and a update on October 4th, so about 17 days since then. I wanted to show you guys progress on what's going on in the layout and maybe a couple minor changes we made along the way. So stick around, thanks. Alright, one of the first things I got done was the backdrop on the layout. Painted both the upper and the lower levels behind them. Summer Sky, it's a blue by Valspar. Get it at Lowe's. Still have a little bit to do in this corner back here. That circuit breaker panel eventually will be hidden by some masonite or some masonite or backdrop. I'll actually blend that into the remaining backdrop. But that section right there it kind of comes off at a 45-degree angle so I can access the circuit breaker panel. Alright, so another section I was able to complete was this upper level section right here. This is what will be Sullivan's curve. I just need to install the front faceplate at the 45-degree angle that matches the bottom. So that's pretty much done. I still have to do the other two sections here that will mirror the lower level. So, but I still have to do this section and this section up here. And then this upper level should be complete as far as bench work. Alright, and since I left this in the shot, let me tell you what this is. For those that don't follow my Facebook page, this is all this is these are blind slats. We've installed blinds in our home, new blinds, and you always have some extra slats down at the bottom. Well, I use this as a way to they're very flimsy, flexible, does kind of what you want it to do. You just tape it in place. But I used it as a template to map out my Helix. Excuse me. And you can actually use it to, if you wanted to, kind of get an idea on how you want your track to flow, and it'll give you some really nice curves or some nice long curves if that's what you're aiming for. Gives you an idea on track placement before you ever lay any track. Same with bench work. I used it to actually map out this Helix section here, and I actually laid out that those blind slats flat on the ground once I had the actual Helix on the ground using those blind slats, and I determined it was 48 inches to 52 inches across. Then I was able to just map out underneath it using blind slats how my track or how my bench work was going to be built for that, and then also how wide and where I was going to place all of these cross members and things like that. So came in handy for me. Not saying everyone needs to use it or anything, I'm just sharing it in case anyone else wants to use it. Okay, since I'm showing you guys the Helix, this is another section I've completed. I just finished this bench work, or not finished it, but it's probably 90% done. I still have to install a couple sections, these angle pieces right here on the back side there, and then on the far side. Got a few of those and a few cross members just to put in, and then I should be done. This is 64 inches across, and this is my Helix section. That center section will be open, allow me access to the inside in case I need to get in there, work on track, trains, whatever. So we have derailment, or for any reason I need to get in there, I can climb under and actually get in there. I will put in a couple, an angle piece here and on the four corners, just so it gives me a little bit more area to secure to if needed while building the Helix. And then I think it'll look better and give me a little more support. Also, underneath the Helix, I repurposed this dresser. I made this Helix. I had to make my track work a little bit higher as I went, and it allowed me to incorporate this dresser underneath here. It's just an old dresser we had. We were going to get rid of it, but then I figured maybe I can use it for storing trains or train parts or things for the layout in there. So right now that's where it's going to be, and like I said, it's a tight fit. It's not tight, but it's pretty close. You can kind of see. So making my track work staggered like so gave me that ability to put this underneath and repurpose the dresser, and also repurpose a section of the layout underneath. And I don't think the dresser will actually interfere with anything underneath, because right here I don't plan on having any switches. And I think the wiring should be easy enough to run between, you know, sections of the benchwork without interfering with the dresser. So I think it'll be okay there, but I'll adjust if needed. This is the section of what I'm talking about, how I staggered my incline section. So I offset about 1.5 inches. I did that in 3 places, there, and also over there. So that way my track was slowly, gradually coming up. The benchwork was slowly coming up gradually, and I didn't have to have such high risers and things like that. Kind of keep the risers at a lower profile. I've just found that over, you know, risers sometimes get knocked over, and I don't know, maybe it's just me being clumsy, but I prefer to keep my risers at a lower profile rather than have big, tall risers. Now what I did also here was I took some of this 1.5 inches or inch by inch stock that I was using for the legs, and I just reinforced underneath. So I actually mounted this. Once I had these bolts in, you know, this section bolted to the next one, I installed this section here. It's just a 1-inch piece of 1x1 cut to fit, and all I do is install it to the next section over, so this section rests on it, gives it a little more support. That way the entire section isn't just resting on 2 bolts. It's got a little bit more support as you go. So, okay, here's another view of my Helix, and this just kind of gives you a different angle. This is from inside the layout. I'm over here looking inside, and this is again a single car garage, so it's a pretty good sized layout. Well, it's a 2-car garage, but I'm using the Helix goes pretty much, this is all one side, and then the only part that really goes into the other side of the garage is where those 2 outlets are. To the right of that is like the next garage over. So pretty good sized layout. But again, going back to the Helix, I originally was not going to do a Helix. Originally what was going to happen was, as we came out of San Bernardino yard, we were going to climb, and then we would actually come around, and of course there'd be a partition in here so you wouldn't see the 2 sides, and then it would bring us up to this upper level. Well, I'd like to thank Bob Lacey now, because Bob happened to ask me the other day, how tall is your upper level and lower level, or how much space is in between them? And I said, you know, 16 inches. And I got to thinking, wait, that looks more than 16 inches. And what happened was, when I originally designed the layout, or built the 2 sections, the upper and the lower, I was supposed to have 16 inches from the top of the lower level to the top of the upper level. Well, when I installed this upper level, instead of putting, you know, the top here, I ended up putting the bottom at the 16-inch mark instead of the top. So now really I'm like 20 inches versus 16. So I actually took that upper level back down and lowered it to the 16-inch mark, and I just wasn't happy with it. I think there was not a whole lot of space in there, and didn't give me a whole lot of room to work on the lower level. So I said, you know, how can I get a couple extra inches of track coming around the layout, you know, in this section, from lower level climb up to the upper level without, you know, having such a drastic rise, because I didn't want a 3% grade was what I was looking at if I'd left it as is. So I figured what I would do is, so kind of as the track comes from the lower level here, there'll just be like a hidden loop in here or 2 maybe, and then it comes up and it just gains that extra height it needed in this Helix over here. So again, thank Bob. I'm glad you asked me that, because my incline would have been about a 3% grade if you wouldn't have said anything, and I didn't want that. And so now I'm back to about a 2% grade or lower is what I was shooting for. So thanks, Bob Lacey. Appreciate your asking me that question. All right, one other thing I did was I installed some of these brackets. I got about 10 of these brackets from Lowe's. I think they're about $2 a piece. And I put one on every other, maybe every third stud on the wall. My layout is actually mounted into the studs, so I skipped maybe every 2 or 3 studs, and I put these brackets into the actual supports, and they're actually mounted into the studs just to give me a little extra stability on the top, because this upper level I didn't want to have any legs anywhere hanging. I didn't want legs interfering with the lower level, so that was what I did for my upper level. Just a tip for you guys also, these studs right here, I had to, when I took this upper level down to measure that 16 inches I was talking about, I realized that I had installed these cross members for the upper level. I hadn't put them on studs, so I just centered them. So if you're ever going to do a upper level and not use legs, and you just strictly want to use these metal braces, make sure you account for some of these wooden cross pieces being lined up with your studs, so you can go into the studs with the bracket, and in addition with the screws themselves that are going into the stud. So just a tip for you guys, learn from my mistake. Okay, another thing I built was this small desk. I had a desk I put up in my office, and I had a little section of it left over that I didn't use, so I figured I'd repurpose it out here in the train room. And this section kind of works good under here. I figure it might be a little pull-out workstation. I can actually slide it out if needed. Work on, you know, trains and modeling or decaling, weathering, or track maintenance, whatever. Just doing projects while I'm in the bigger area of the train layout, and I can have a chair in here, a little workstation that I can slide underneath as needed, pull out as needed, and you know, I can still watch trains go by and still see everything in line of sight. So apologize again for the mess in the train room. It's work in progress, but you know, if it's not messy, it means you're not getting anything done, right? Here's that other section of layout I was talking about earlier, behind or in front of the circuit breaker panel. Again, I had to make this especially at an angle just so I could access that circuit breaker, still open it as needed. Hopefully I don't need to get in there, but I can't really move that panel, so I made that upper level and the lower levels so that circuit breaker back there I can get in and do whatever I need to get in there, and you know, as needed. So on the upper and lower level, I probably will put some type of masonite backdrop behind them, paint them blue, and then I'll just blend it in with the wall so you won't even see the circuit breaker panel. Lower level is mounted, and it's got legs already in place, but the upper level, it's just got a temporary leg holding it. It is mounted here. It's actually mounted here, but the upper level is just got a temporary leg just to keep it level. So once I get that leg cut and sanded, what I'll probably do is I'll probably fix one of them, you know, a long leg like that. It'll probably be one of the only 2 or 3 on the layout that actually, you know, a leg for the upper and lower level, but they'll both be on probably this end of the layout where the backdrop will hide them anyway, so it shouldn't really matter. Alright, so anyway, I appreciate you guys stopping in for another update. Kind of take you guys around the layout one last time, and I'll hopefully tell you what, you know, the plans are moving forward, and you know, where I hope to be at the next layout update. So anyway, one last look at the layout before moving on. It's kind of starting to take shape. I can vision the end result. So hopefully by the next layout video update, we'll have this upper level here and here done. This will be the upper level and the reversing section of the upper level, much like the lower level. That'll be done. Hopefully I have that 45 on installed over at Sullivan's Curve. Over here on this end, we'll have the other, like the lower level, we'll have the rest of that turn done on the upper level, and then we will probably use risers from the rest coming down to the this section here and the helix. And then I hope to have this helix, these last few sections of wood installed, the corner pieces, the angles, I should say, and a couple cross members. And hopefully I'm laying sub road bed here, not sub road bed, yeah, I guess sub road bed, the wood starting to build up on a Helix, and you know, maybe start having some other areas where we're starting to cut plywood to make sub road bed for the layout. But yeah, appreciate you guys following along on the build, and if you have questions, feel free to post here on my layout video channel, or I have a dedicated Facebook page. It is SoCal N Scale Layout, and if you just search that on Facebook, it'll come up. You know, that actually has a lot of pictures as I go, and if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them there or here, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. But thanks, and appreciate all your feedback, and thanks for following. Take care.